Paradise has arrived on the island. Chrome has taken our heroes and left us defenseless against a new powerful foe who suggests that her arrival is just the beginning. Today, we're diving deep into the story of the Herald, who we called the Bloom Watcher. Season 4 picks up right where we left off with our vibing quests. The scientist, the visitor, and the origin hiding in their biolab get a little too close to the Chrome and are completely consumed, while Paradigm watches. The Herald, currently in the form of a blob of chrome rising in front of her, laughs at Paradigm's fate. But before she could consume her last target, Paradigm puts on her helmet and blasts off into the sky, as hexagon pillars of chrome are rising around her. Eventually, she ends up in Loot Lake and uses the 0 point to travel to Reality 659. I'll have an entirely separate theory video later on covering the beginning of the season, where Paradigm went, and what the quests are containing. But for now, we're focusing on the Herald. Continuing the cinematic, we see that the Herald watched the Paradigm leave the island and turns into her plant form from the Chrome. So with that little tidbit of information, we can assume she's probably been on the island for a little over a week, personally kidnapping the Seven herself like she did with the Origin, Scientist, and the Visitor. The Herald being able to turn into Chrome tells me she's got a stronger connection to this than just causing it. This may even be her doing. The Herald has clear control over the Chrome spreading, because it even forms her very own sanctum right behind the now shiny Sanctuary. With that being said, it's very possible one of our theories from last season is now confirmed. She drove the 0 points bloom past its limit, sucked up the 0 points power for the reality tree's growth across the island, and then when the time was right, made her arrival with the Chrome. Based on her design, she's clearly connected to flowers and plant life, possibly even part of the Pluxarian species that Bloom is from. So with that being said, it wouldn't be a stretch to say her connection to plant life contributed to her strong control of the blooming this time around. With this grip on the reality tree's growth, she turned the tides and strained the 0 points energy, eventually letting her Chrome bleed through. Maybe even through the roots. Of course, we're still left in the dark about a lot of the specifics, but that's a solid theory based off this new information for now. Oh, and that orb we saw her standing in front of menacingly, we can go see that in game now. Since the Herald is a boss, leaving her alone for a while lets her return to her idle pose, and that is watching and controlling a large orb focused directly on the reality tree. Or at least what's left of it. Let's dive into the map changes, cosmetics, and a whole lot more you're probably not expecting. Probably. First things first, her name isn't Bloom Watcher. It might have been a good name the community came up with, but Fortnite had something more intimidating in mind. The Herald is her official name, and it's not as simple as it seems. Herald has two main definitions. One explains that a herald is a messenger for royalty, and the other says a person or thing viewed as a sign that something is about to happen. Both of these revolve around the same idea. Her arrival is a message and a sign to us all. She's only here to prepare the island for who comes next. And we've got plenty of signs pointing towards who this may be that we'll hop into right now. Let's take a look at what she's done so far. The Herald seemingly controlled the powerful blooming at Reality Falls that we've been talking about for over a season. But once she spread the chrome around the island, she went straight for the Seven. Now why would she do that? What history does she have with them? Let alone how does she even know them? Well, let's say she was taking orders from someone who wanted them gone. Someone powerful who's been defeated by them in the past. To our knowledge, that only limits it down to a couple of characters, but one of them stands out. The Cube Queen. That's right, the Cube Queen is the one who sent the Herald to the island. And why, you may ask? To get rid of the Seven before she arrives. If you recall back in the end of Chapter 2, the Seven flipping the island ended up breaking the Cube Queen's bubble and forcing her and her army to retreat. If I were her, I'd be pretty upset too. The Seven completely foiled her plans, and she wants revenge. We've also got a leak from all the way back in Chapter 2, Season 7 that leaked tons of information about Season 7, 8, and even Chapter 3. Every claim has been proven thus far, and the only one left is the Cube Queen's return in Chapter 3. Unless Fortnite completely switched up the story at some point after this leak, her return at some point in this chapter is inevitable. And lucky for us, we just got a new villain called the Herald, which literally means a messenger for royalty. This all points to the fact that the Herald was most likely sent here to get rid of the Seven before the Cube Queen's arrival. Send everyone a message. Evil is on its way. But I'm sure there's still more she's left to do. After all, she's spreading her chrome across the entire island. She didn't just stop when she got the Seven. But wait, there's more. The Herald has her very own music pack called The Nothing is Inevitable. We'll return to this title later, but for now, we're gonna give it a listen. Sound familiar? Good, because it should. Her theme sounds very similar to the Cube Queen's anthem, along with the music in both the Chapter 2 Season 8 trailers, all focusing on the last reality, the faction the Cube Queen rules over. I mean, they are very similar. If you just listen to the underlying tones in them, you can totally hear the theme similarities. Another potential tease to her connections to the Cube Queen is the fact alone that she has her very own music pack, just as the Origin and the Cube Queen had their own anthems, both rulers of the last reality. At least for the Origin, former ruler. I feel like I could honestly just end the video right here. I mean, it seems pretty clear that there's a lot of evidence pointing towards the Herald leading into the Cube Queen's grand return to Reality Zero. But I've always got more for you, so let's talk about the Nothing. If you're a fan of Save the World, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But for you BR fans out there, boy do I have something for you. To put it simply, the Nothing is a force that the cubes in the storm release that create an overwhelming sense of dread and hopelessness within anyone in proximity of it. The only way of defeating the Nothing is by thinking about things you care about. After all, this mysterious force is coming precisely from darkness, aka the cubes in the storm. So we've got this creepy force that the storm and all cubes have within them. And now that we know in BR that the last reality, run by the Cube Queen, is where all these cubes come from, we can assume the Nothing originates from the last reality. Or at least they've harnessed it. It's been theorized amongst many in the community for a while that the Nothing is one of the key ways the last reality takes over other realities, by deploying cubes and monsters and spreading this overwhelming sense of dread and hopelessness throughout, dooming whole civilizations, leaving them with no will to fight. But how does this connect to the Herald in Season 4? Well, we're only a week into the season and the Nothing has been mentioned a lot of times. One of our new Battle Pass outfits, Bite, has some very interesting cosmetics. Let's take a look. The main outfit has chrome hands, showing they somehow have been given this power without being completely consumed like everyone else. But when we take a look at Bite's pickaxe, which is made of chrome and comes out of their chrome hands, things get interesting. The name is the Nothing's Gift, and the description says it must be earned. This implies the Nothing is actually the chrome. But what's the gift, you say? Well, it looks like the gift is the chrome itself, and the fact that Bite can use this chrome from their hands as weapons. Somehow, Bite was deemed worthy by the Nothing, and has been given the power to use this chrome to their advantage. Okay, so before I talk about why this season the Nothing is being applied to be the chrome, there's a few more hints we need to talk about. If we switch over to the Herald's description, it clearly says, the Nothing is coming. Now you could argue that she is indeed a Herald for the Nothing, but like I mentioned previously, the last reality is using the Nothing, if not creating it entirely. But now we're getting all sorts of teases that the Nothing is the chrome itself, but I'm here to tell you, it's not. Since the Nothing is clearly not being radiated from the storm or from cubes this time around, it seems quite possible now that it's a force that can be manifested in several ways, and harnessed by different people. So for example, the last reality is using the Nothing with its cubes and storm, but now we're getting new information showing us the Herald using the Nothing in the form of chrome. And like I discussed earlier, she seems to be with the last reality. So as far as we know, the Nothing is being used by all sorts of powerful people in the last reality in all kinds of different ways. The Cube Queen and her army of cubes infusing civilizations with dread, hopelessness, and more, and the Herald using the Nothing to power her chrome that consumes everything. So we could even start seeing the Nothing showing itself in more ways later in the story, as I feel like others throughout the Omniverse could try and use this power too. But for now, let's stick to the theory that the Nothing is a force the last reality alone uses. Oh, and a few more important mentions about the Nothing. Her music pack is titled, The Nothing is Inevitable. At first glance, this just sounds like another scary way of telling us what's to come, which we've already talked about, but actually, this exact phrase has been said before, by the scientist. Let's go all the way back to Season X when we were getting numbers flashing at us in the black hole, which we had to translate to words from the tapes he recorded during the season. His final phrase was this: the Nothing is now inevitable. Years later, the Herald is bringing this phrase back to light, and even explaining to us what he could have meant. That reset of the 0 point could have somehow sent the Nothing on a course to Reality Zero, and now that the 0 point was released and freely floating around, the Herald arrived to forewarn us. Well, not a nice, hey look out way, more of a, I've been sent here to end most of you and I'll let the nothing take care of the rest kind of way. Regardless, there's still a lot of mystery regarding what that phrase meant, and why the end event directly caused the nothing to be inevitable, and why now the Herald's music pack directly repeats that same warning. Possibly the nothing was an early name Fortnite had for the last reality, when they had a rough idea of where the cube came from, and the black hole somewhat helped with the process of the last reality's arrival, hence them being inevitable. And now, Fortnite decided the nothing is going to be a force the last reality uses in a multitude of ways. I'm not quite sure honestly, it's a pretty messy theory and there's not too much to go off of, but it's a possibility. Whatever the case may be, Jones and the Paradigm are very much aware of it too. While it is predictable that the Paradigm knows about it since the scientist literally name dropped the nothing back in Season X, it's still really interesting that Jones knows what it is also. In our first Paradise quests for this season, Paradigm mentions the nothing by saying,
"Stay safe, and listen, there will be no second chances here. The nothing is..."
Then, Jones starts to freak out by saying,
"Did she say nothing? Or V, nothing, capital T, capital N."
Clearly Jones is aware of what the nothing is, and he's not so happy with the idea of it being around. Since he knows, and he's been working with the IO for centuries, perhaps he's heard about this from encounters with the last reality and their use of it. Or, the other theory I mentioned, and it's some cosmic force that's widely known in the Omniverse. However you slice it, it's becoming quite popular this season. So to circle all the way back, the Herald has clear use of the nothing in the form of Chrome, and the last reality also has clear use of the nothing in the form of spreading it from cubes in the storm. I believe that this is a huge hint at the Herald setting us up for the Cube Queen's arrival. And for her next trip to the island, I think she may resort to heavily using the nothing to conquer Reality Zero. And with the only way to fight it off being to think of things you care about, we're pretty much doomed. You know, because loopers have their memory absolutely wiped in the loop. As we wrap this up, I want to clear a misconception I've seen too. While we do have a lot of evidence pointing towards the Herald being the last reality, one of our Paradise quests mentioning the Origin wanting to launch an attack on the Herald is not one of them. The quest right before has us collecting the Origin's battle plans for the Chrome, and it turns out he wanted to launch a full-blown attack on the Herald. Many are taking this as confirmation that he knows who she is from his reign of the last reality, and perhaps that he wanted to take her down while he was king. But actually, these plans are recent, and the Herald most likely appeared during the Chrome invasion like we saw at the end of the trailer, hence his plans. Reapers, from the looks of it, this is a long video, but there was a lot of information and evidence to cover for you all. Moral of the story, the Herald was sent here by the last reality to get rid of the 7 and prep Reality Zero for the Cube Queen's grand return. I hope you all enjoyed this one. Make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date on the storyline. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, keep it reaping.